What's up, Spice Heads? Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Unified Cloud-Based Disaster Recovery, brought to you by Arcserve. Before we get started, I'm going to go through some quick housekeeping items. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded, so keep a lookout for an email from us with the link to check out the webinar on demand. Secondly, there's a Q&A box on your screen. When you submit a question, it will disappear from your box and queue up on our side. So don't worry, we have it and we will ask those questions at the end. If we can't get to your question, don't worry, we'll be able to follow up with you after the event. Lastly, we do have a live chat during the duration of the webinar, so jump in and chat with your fellow IT pros. Now let's get this show started. Today's presenters are Stacy Budd, Principal Pre-Sales Consultant, and Keith Summers, Senior Product Manager. Stacy, whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here back in front of everybody. Glad to be talking to you about today's topic, which is, cloud-based disaster recovery, right? And what Arcserve is bringing, to the table with this topic today. So let's jump right on in. When we take a look at, our customers and kind of our customer base, we tend to be more of the mid-market customers, some smaller customers as well. And we see that a lot of those customers want, enterprise class features down into their level as far as all that goes, right? So when we we look at what some of those needs are, right? They have increasing, data complexity. When we look at things and we do webcasts and they're around, risk-based stuff like ransomware and things like that, I mean, we just get tons of feedback from those. And for me and my role within the company, we get a ton of, questions around that type of stuff and how to mitigate some risk and different things like that as well. And then those expectations that they have, again, are a lot of times higher expectations that would be more like enterprise type expectations. I don't know any company nowadays that isn't, shrinking their IT staff, right? In most cases, asking people to do more with less, right? Less people have more roles and things like that as well. So, I mean, it's definitely key, and it's been for a while, right, as a trend as far as that goes. And then when we look at, recovery, right, and being able to recover data, people really, their expectations have grown, customers' expectations have grown, that they really want to limit that downtime to, as narrow as possible. We say here a few seconds of downtime. That's really a realistic expectation that people are looking for nowadays as far as that goes. When we look at our type of deployments, right, our Arcserve offers software, we offer appliances, we offer a hybrid cloud solution, and now we have a direct-to-cloud solution, which is what we're going to talk to you about today as well. Some of our customer type examples, when we take a look at those, they may have a single headquarter type location, they may have branch offices or remote DR offices, or in some cases the cloud is remote for them as well. And when they're looking at, the type of recovery that they're looking at doing, really, how is that recovery, from a financial standpoint? Can they afford to have that DR location?
Hey guys, sorry about that technical difficulty. We are going to get started right at the top of this slide. Stacy, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. And by the way, I'm reading some of the comments in here about the audio, and it's really has me laughing here. So keep them coming. So when we talk about, the mandates from, from our customers, the growing disaster recovery requirements that are out there, that definitely features are moving and requirements are moving downstream, if you will, to medium and small business, as far as that goes. A number of mid-market applications really have, zero tolerance. When we think of things like ERP or e-commerce, we tend to think of larger customers, right? You tend to think of, people like Amazon or something like that, right? When you really start to think of e-commerce. But in reality, there's a ton of customers out there that do e-commerce that aren't to the scale or the scope of Amazon, but it's just as important for them to be able to have their data up and available, and if it does go down, have it recoverable quickly so that they, maybe the scope of the dollars may be different, but the risk is the same for those customers. And in some cases, the risk may be even higher for them, right, as far as that goes as well. When you look at, the current Arcserve cloud portfolio and what we offer, a hybrid, first off, an Arcserve hybrid cloud solution, which is disk to disk to cloud at that point, right? So it leverages, our current, recovery point server technology where we back up to that and then we replicate up to, an Arcserve hybrid cloud within that, right? Gives you the benefits of long-term storage. You don't have to worry about having that data, locally, right, or moving it to tape or something like that as well. It gives you that ability to do that. It really helps where you have moderate bandwidth, right, because it leverages things like deduplication and features like that as well. But there are always going to be those limitations when it comes around, bandwidth and, the facilities that you have and things like that as well. And also the platforms that you're going to support. When you look at the Arcserve UDP features, in the cloud, right, it really gives you, gives customers, those abilities to spin up machines and DR kind of as a service, right, within that, but not at the highest level of DR either, because you're paying more for storage, but we can do some DR within that. The reality is, it's not going to, we're not going to spin up that machine right away for you. We have to spin up that environment for you and get it out there. So, we do have some ways to address that when you definitely need to get those machines up, so much quicker. And when we look at, the new offering, which Keith is going to speak to you about in a moment, that's the Arcserve Cloud Direct. This is more for those customers that need that quick, a very simple, ramp up, without, on-premise hardware requirements, right? Whereas the hybrid cloud, we would have a local server or one of our appliances or something like that as well. And then definitely this also speaks well to, for channel partners out there. So MSPs, things like that, that definitely want to have that capability for their customers and be able to track and invoice and do those things as well. And then, ultimately too, it's still about moving data, right? So being able to securely move that data, over networks and data centers around the world, right? That's at the end of the day, we're basically talking about moving data and protecting data. Now, when we look at, kind of the current Arcserve Cloud offering, right? When we take a look at the Arcserve Cloud, the hybrid cloud, if you will, it's a third-party app, cloud that we partnered with as far as that goes, and it does, give some HA in the cloud, give some high availability, virtual standby, being able to spin up machines up in the cloud, but it is more, as I said before, you're really kind of using it as storage, and if you need to do DR, the DR is there, to be able to do as well. A lot of times we have customers that, they only want to be able to do it, but they don't ever plan on actually doing it, right? So that they want to not have to pay for the DR capabilities all the time. And that's really where the hybrid cloud came around, is being able to, if customers did need to fail over, we do, but there's SLAs tied around that as well. When we look at, features like our virtual standby and instant VM, we can also do those up to Amazon, right, and be able to support that as well to their EC2 instance. And this comes in when, okay, now I want a faster, recovery time objective, right? I can't wait for machines to be fired up and turned on and things like that. I need to be able to fail over much faster. And then we still have those type of customers where, hey, I just want to send my data to the cloud. I don't want to send it to the Arcserve cloud. So we support S3 for that as well as some capabilities when we send that to S3, also send that type of data up to Azure and be able to do some copy files and key things like that. And even, full system high availability, right, to cloud. And those capabilities are up there as well, where we do continuous replication And again, these are our present offerings, what we offer. And even in our tape backup solution, Arcserve Backup, we can even take those backups that you're doing and copy that off to cloud as well, to Amazon Azure, and you'll see like VTL, Amazon VTL, and those kind of solutions. So, when we look at it, we have a pretty good, all-around offering dependent on the customer's needs and far of that. But there is, obviously one glaring, thing that we're missing here, and that's what we're going to talk about here in a minute. When we look at, the new offerings and the Arcserve Cloud, what it's going to bring to the table, right? And again, we're going to let Keith kind of speak to this, but, when we talk about, the new offerings, from Arcserve as a company, first off, we have our new archiving solution, right? And it does support, virtual appliances, AWS, on-prem, OVFs, and things like that as well. Hyper-V, VMware, email archiving, you would expect that kind of capability. The two new services that are around backup and DR are going to be backup as a service to the Arcserve Cloud, which is, a file-based solution for Windows, Linux, and Mac, right? And you could do granular restore. We're going to see a demo of that as well. You can do image level restore. It's a really, really cool solution. We can also take that to the next level and do disaster recovery as a service, DR as a service as well, to the Arcserve solution there as well, Arcserve Cloud. So those are the two pieces that we're going to focus on today, and adding to the capability and the portfolio, the Arcserve portfolio. When we take a look at just in general, and we look at the Arcserve and how the Arcserve solution fits, the Unified Data Protection solution fits, we start out with a primary site, and this is what it would look like today, right? We have a dedicated, recovery point server. We offer things like global deduplication, and then we're going to handle that data, very intelligently. So not only are we not requiring as much storage, we're not requiring as much bandwidth and capabilities such as that. But as those environments grow out, right, what we'll see is, we might have customers with remote offices, branch offices, and sometimes these are smaller offices, right? So, do we roll out an appliance in those locations, or do we look at, the direct to Arcserve Cloud solution, the backup as a service solution in those kind of cases there as well? And then, we do spread out very well. We do grow very well with customers. So they could have multiple locations. They could have, an MSP could be servicing this customer, right, as well. So where we deploy, how we deploy, we do have a good scope of being able to grow with that. And we have a full breadth of, cloud technologies that we support, our own technology, and then, of course, the public clouds and things like that as well. But enough hearing me talk about what we currently do. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hand it over to Keith Summers, and he's going to take you through the new Arcserve UDP Cloud Direct. So take it away, Keith.
All right, thanks, Stacy, and hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to introduce you to the Arcserve UDP Cloud Direct product offerings. There are two in this portfolio of offerings. We have first the backup as a service, if you will, and the second being the disaster recovery as a service. So with the backup as a service, what we wanted to do is introduce a solution that allow customers to safely and securely transfer data from their on-premise environment directly to the cloud. Once in the cloud, they can browse multiple recovery points, and if so needed, they can restore from the cloud. Now, with our disaster recovery solution, we take that just a tad bit further, where you can continue to back up systems, you back up your servers, your virtual machines up to the cloud. But with this solution, you get additional compute resources, so that in the event of a disaster, you can spin those virtual instances up in the cloud and run from the cloud if necessary. And then in the once the on-premise disaster has been resolved, you can fail back those systems from the cloud back to your on-premise environment. So those are the two solutions that are part of the new Arcserve Cloud, Arcserve UDP Cloud Direct. portfolio. So let's explore a little bit more about the backup as a service solution. A few key features here, as mentioned, and as is in the name, the solution offers direct to cloud transfer. There is an option for a local, to keep a current local backup as well, but this was designed to go directly from your on-prem environment directly to the cloud. There is built-in WAN optimization in the agent. We have an agent that allows this to take place. There's built-in WAN optimization. There are incremental backups. So after an initial backup, the subsequent backups are just the incrementals. Security in transit, so through an SSL connection, and also when the data reaches the cloud, it's encrypted at rest. So that leads me to the next key feature. Security is absolutely key in the transfer and the data at rest. Likewise, on the back end, it's very pivotal that customers be able to recover their data. So as a result, we do some back end operational processes to ensure that that data is recoverable. Web-based, we wanted customers to be able to access and manage and administer their data from just about anywhere. So we have a management portal that is available or supported on all the major web browsers. So if you have access to a web browser, you can view, administer your protected environment. Multiple recovery options. So we wanted to make sure that customers had multiple ways of restoring. If you're on a Windows system, you can mount a recovery point as a network drive. You can restore a portion of a file or a portion of a folder, or you can restore a portion of a system, or you can restore the entire system as well. And then comprehensive automated detection. So, data protection. We also wanted to make this very an automated standpoint. You set the schedule, it backs up. You also get alerts and notifications to let you know how things are going. And you also get reports on a daily basis. We have a daily digest to let you know how things went with your backups in the previous evening. A bit about the systems that you can protect with this solution. It supports both physical and virtual systems. For physical systems, you deploy a lightweight agent, a very lightweight agent on Windows, Linux, and Mac. Once that agent is deployed, you have the choice of you can create backup tasks, and the backup task that you create determines how and what data you wish to protect in the cloud. For Linux and Mac, that backup is files and folders. But if you're running a Windows system, you can also back up files and folders. You can also back up system state. You can also back up application data, such as SQL database files, as well as Exchange files. And you can ultimately back up the entire server. For virtual machines or virtual systems, you can also deploy the agent directly to the guest operating system of a virtual machine. But if you are running in a VMware environment and you want an agentless approach, you can deploy what we offer, a virtual appliance. You deploy this virtual appliance in your environment, it connects and communicates with your vCenter server, discovers your VM, you specify which VMs you wish to protect, and since we back up the whole VM, you can view those VM virtual instances or those virtual snapshots in the cloud and restore either part or the entire virtual machine image. Now for Hyper-V, we have a plugin. We are working to move towards a more analogous approach that we have for VMware, where you're able to discover your VMs. But right now with Hyper-V, we have a plugin that lets you create a backup task and point to a location of where you're storing your Hyper-V disk images. And once pointed to that direction, the agent will pick up those files and back those up to the cloud. And here also on this slide, you can see some of the supported operating systems in their version. So this presents more of a high-level overview of the process, kind of in a numbered approach. As it described, if when you have systems on-prem, you deploy the lightweight agent, or if you're running in a VMware environment, you can deploy the virtual appliance for VMware. You create your backup task. If you deploy the agent, or if you're using the virtual appliance, you specify which virtual machines you wish to protect. That data is captured by the agent and the appliance and transmitted securely to the Arcserve Cloud Direct infrastructure, which is supported by 2 data centers that are managed and operated by Arcserve, one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast. As I mentioned, you do have an option, if you so choose, to keep a local copy. You can do that as well. So for every backup task, you can specify that, hey, I want to keep a copy of this local. But the solution was designed for going straight to the cloud. And then once your data is in the cloud, the management portal is where you'll do all of your work, where you will administer, review, and update your policies to make sure that you keep dibs on how things are being protected in the cloud, as well as if you wish to restore from the cloud, you would do that through the management interface. Now, a bit about the disaster recovery as a service solution. This is a solution that we really wanted to hit on 3 key things. We wanted it to be enterprise grade, as Stacy mentioned earlier. Some of those mid-market customers are seeing or beginning to have some of those enterprise pain points without the enterprise budgets. So what we wanted to do is make sure that some of those mid-sized companies that have those larger data sets, that they can be protected, that they can be assured that if they need to do a failover or spin up a server within a short period of time, that they can do that. We wanted to ensure them and give them the confidence that we are protecting the data in a enterprise level fashion. But we also wanted to make it really easy. So 100% cloud-based. So if they are unable to, if they don't have the staff to manage on-premise hardware and they want to go direct to the cloud, also we have a web-based portal. So if you have access to a web browser, you can get to and manage your environment. So we wanted to make the UI relatively intuitive. And so I'll show you that in a demo just shortly here. We also offer 24/7, 365 support. So customers love the support team, and we understand that disaster recovery is something that's gaining traction in the mid-size market. And so we want to be there to help them not only at the time of disaster, but before the disaster happens. And we also wanted to make it very affordable. We don't, throw any hidden costs. We don't charge for bandwidth. We don't charge for IOPS in the cloud. We just charge you for the cloud storage for storing your systems, as well as the compute when you need to power those systems up in the cloud. So some of the key features for the solution, as I mentioned, we wanted to make it a push button. So literally, and as I'll show in the demo, if you're protecting a server with disaster recovery, it's protected in the cloud. And if you want to activate or power on that system, it's literally you click the activate button and then you're up and running. The recovery time objective is under 5 minutes, or about the time it takes to spin up a server. If it's a pretty small virtual machine, or if it's a pretty small Windows server, it should boot up pretty quickly. But if it's a larger server, it may take a little longer. But the RTO, we've gotten down to about the time it takes to boot up the server. Automated DR testing, this is something that we want to continue to expand on. Right now it's more self-service. So anytime you want to come in and test to say, hey, is this system, can I boot this system up in the cloud? You can activate that system at any time. We also do some checks, which I'll show you as well. Periodically, we spin up the server. We take a screenshot of the login screen just to kind of give you that little extra bit of confidence that it is possible to boot up this server. Scalability, definitely wanted to provide that scalability, because as the mid-market scales up, we want to be able to support those larger environments. Failover, fail back, we want to be there to support, to give those customers that capability. Active Directory, so whether you want to run an Active Directory in your cloud, your virtual data center, so when you subscribe to the disaster recovery solution, we spin up a virtual data center for you, and we also give you the ability to have an Active Directory server running in that cloud. We want to be able to support those hybrid environments, hybrid here meaning physical or virtual environments, and then we also want to give you with the virtual data center, the ability to not only spin up in the cloud, have your networking in the cloud, but also give you network connectivity options for connecting to that virtual data center in the cloud when should a disaster occur. So here, like I did with the backup as a service solution, here is a numbered approach. Once again, it's the agent or the virtual appliance. Here you must specify a particular backup task if you're using the agent. Here you want to do a Windows image, a complete image of the system. If you're in a virtual environment, you can deploy the virtual appliance. You specify that you want to protect your VMs, and then we capture the whole VM. Those VMs can be running Windows or Linux. Once they're in the cloud, they're captured by the appliance and the agent, transmitted securely to our cloud, which is once again supported by our data centers that are managed and operated by Arcserve. It gives you the ability, once they're protected in the cloud, you go to your portal, you can see what you are protecting with disaster recovery. You can spin those systems up should a disaster occur, and then after the disaster has been resolved, you can fail back those systems that were running into any cloud back to your on-premise environment. So just the high-level workflow, if you will. So here is an example of, a DR, as Stacey mentioned earlier. There may be customers that have remote offices, small offices where they may not have a lot of IT staff, or they could be a situation where, like in this case, where you're a construction firm, you have lots of job sites, remote sites. You're kind of communicating back to a central data center, but the data at those sites is valuable and it needs to be protected. And so at those locations, you can deploy the agent, or if it's a virtual environment that you're running there, you can deploy the virtual appliance. That data is sent directly from that remote office directly to the cloud. And, in the event of something occurring at that location, and maybe you need to recover or you need to continue working, you can spin those virtual instances of those systems that were at the remote site up in the cloud and continue operations from your remote facilities. So just an idea, just a sample use case there. Here, just wanted to give a high-level overview of some of the technology behind the platform. As I mentioned, you'll do most of your work from the Arcserve management portal. This is where customers log in, they see their environment, they see their protected systems, and they control how the data on those systems are protected. You deploy the replication agent, and you create your backup task, which determines how the data on those systems will be protected. That data is transmitted securely to our backend infrastructure, which is a stateless infrastructure. We wanted to make sure that it scaled and that we did additional automated processing to make sure that the data is indeed maintains data integrity. As you can see here, we have silos of storage. So if you're just simply doing backup, this is where your data will be stored in the cloud. And if you're using disaster recovery, the storage is connected to a virtual infrastructure, which will allow us to spin those virtual instances up for you. We also have the ability we also offer some APIs. So if you have customers, or if there's customers who have their own UI or their own portal and they just kind of want to integrate and pull data from this environment, that's a possibility as well. Right. So with that, just a summary, once again, we are delighted to introduce and offer the Arcserve UDP Cloud Direct offerings. We have the backup as a service, as well as disaster recovery as a service. Doesn't require any on-prem hardware to manage. Data is securely and quickly transferred to the cloud in a WAN optimized approach. We wanted to give you more of easy to use administrative portal so that you can always manage your environment. And this is just another tool in the toolbox of the Arcserve cloud offering. So with that, I know I went through those relatively quickly because ultimately I wanted to get to the product demo. Of course, a lot of people, it's nice to see pictures of nice cars, but it's even better to drive those nice cars. So with that, let me switch over to the portal. I will start the screenshot. And this is a live demo, so bear with us. Hopefully everything goes well. So I am going to share the screen. And so to give you the full experience, I'm actually going to log back out and show you the login portal. So this is the login portal that you come to when you're subscribing to either the backup as a service or the disaster recovery as a service offering. One portal manages both solution offerings. This portal does support Google two-factor authentication, and if that for some added security for those users who need that. Of course, I'm not using it in this instance, but I'm just going to log into the portal. And so you can see here, we have two views of the portal. So we have a single tenant view, if you will. So if you're a direct customer, you would log into this portal and you would simply see all of your systems. But here we also have a managed service provider view. So if you were managing multiple customers, this is the view that you would get. And as you can see, you have a list of your customers lined up here and their storage. You get a summary of how many customers you have, how many systems you're protecting, as well as your total usage. You get a little more detail about across the customers, and you can kind of get an idea of how much data they've been using over time. So this would be your view, and if you needed to add another customer, you can click this button, add another customer, and then deploy the agent or the appliance in their environment and begin protecting their systems. So then if you click on a particular customer, you get a tad bit more detail. As you can see with this customer, we're protecting 14 systems. Now you can, as I mentioned, the solution protects physical and virtual. Now if you deploy the virtual appliances to protect VMware virtual machines, you can do, you would administer that through this tab. And then of course you have the disaster recovery tab, which for those systems that you're protecting using disaster recovery. So if you have a situation where you want to use only backup, you can do that as well, in which case you wouldn't need the disaster recovery tab. But you could have a situation where there's some systems you simply want to do some, backup and restore, but other systems you may want to do disaster recovery. Those systems that you're protecting with disaster recovery would be listed under here. All the systems that you're protecting would be under here under the systems tab. Volumes, the data that is protected and sent to the cloud is stored in volumes. You're able to check your usage. How much data is this customer using? You're also able to generate reports as well as give different users access to this portal. What I now want to do is take a look at the systems that are being protected for this customer. So the single user view, you would log in, and this would be your starting point, the systems. So these are the systems that are being protected. Here, these are the systems that are being protected by the agent that has been deployed directly to these systems. Now, these could be physical systems, either Windows, Linux, or Mac, or they could also be, in this case of this system here, this Acme VM2, it could be a virtual machine where the agent was directly deployed to the guest operating system. Now, this portal kind of gives you an idea of what you're protecting, kind of gives you an idea of the operating system, name of the system, gives you an idea of the backup status. So here, this one completed, gives you a time frame of how long it took to back up. Now, the ability to back up a system can be done on a manual basis or a scheduled basis. Here, we have an indication of the system being protected with disaster recovery. So when a customer, they can start out using just simply the backup as a service solution, in which case they won't see the indicator to be able to protect the system with disaster recovery. But if a customer wants disaster recovery, they communicate with Arcserve, let them know, and we will provision the virtual data center for them. And once that virtual center data center is provisioned for them on the back end, then they will be able to begin to leverage disaster recovery, all in the same portal. So if we go through and take a look at the configuration, here is where the user would specify how they want to protect this system. As you can see here in this backup task, I'm protecting, this is a Windows system, so I'm protecting the entire disk image. But I also have the option to protect this system in different ways. I can do a system state, I can do files and folders, I can back up some SQL or Exchange data, and then this is also the point where I can point to a location where all of my Hyper-V VM disk images are, and the agent will go to that location, find those files, and back those files directly up to the cloud. We also have a plugin for NetApp, so if you're using NetApp, we can protect those NetApp volumes as well. And so, as you can see here, once you have your backup task, you can specify a schedule. It can be done on a daily basis at a specific time, or you could do every other day. And also set up throttles. So if you have a lot of systems, or you have a system that has a lot of data, a lot of change, and you don't want to consume all your bandwidth, you can click here and specify set bandwidth throttles for a particular time. So only use this much bandwidth between the hours of 8 to 5, but then after 5 o'clock, you can use all the bandwidth that you need to complete the backup. So this is the configuration tab here. You can take a look at the status tab, and it tells you the status of the last job that ran, the last backup. And then this also tells you the job status, that the state of the last job, right? So in backing up this C drive or backing up this entire system, it kind of gives you an idea of some of the tasks or some of the, the activities that take place in backing up this task and the status. And so you can go back in time to see how this job has been behaving over time. Right? So that is the, these are systems that have been protected using the agent. If I wanted to restore any of the data, I could simply come and click the restore button and restore data from this task. As I mentioned, you have multiple recovery points. So you can either go with the most current, or you can go back in time. If you need to browse through any of this data, you simply click the browse, and we bring up a file browser, and then you're able to navigate through this image to find if you can restore the entire image, or you can simply select data from this image that you wish to restore. Likewise, if you wanted to restore the entire image, you can simply click this, and then this would indicate, okay, where do you want to restore this image to? What's the location? And then what is the file format that you want to restore it to? So those are some options when attempting to restore. Let me go back to the systems. Something I did mention there, you have the option to create backup tasks when you've deployed the agent to a system. I showed you what Windows looks like. This is a system that, this is a Linux system. So just kind of wanted to show you that here the backup tasks are a little more confined, in that here we're backing up files and folders. Okay. Likewise for Mac. So if you were protecting a Mac system, files and folders. But for Windows, you have a bit more of an option. Now, I also mentioned that we protect virtual machines, right? So here, these are the virtual machines that are being protected by the virtual appliance. As you can see here, this is the actual virtual appliance, so the name of the virtual appliance that is protecting all of these virtual machines. And so that is done and configured through this virtualization tab. So let me move over to the virtualization tab. Here you can see the virtual appliance. You can have more than one virtual appliance, because if you have a larger environment, if you have multiple locations, you could deploy a virtual appliance in each data center, and then associate that or connect that to a vCenter server, and then that vCenter, through that vCenter server, it will discover all the virtual machines in your environment. And to protect that system, you simply click Enable Backups. And then once you click Enable Backups, it will be transferred or added to, more accurately, to this tab, the Systems tab, as a protected system. So these are all your protected systems. These are your protected systems that have the agent deployed, and these are your protected systems that are being protected with a virtual appliance. So now the topic of enabling disaster recovery. So by default, it's not protected with disaster recovery. You have to enable that. So that's just a minor step. You come in here and you simply click that I want to enable this system for disaster recovery. You specify, we indicate which disk is the boot disk on that system that you're protecting. You specify how much RAM you want to this system to have when you boot the virtual instance in the cloud. You specify that. You also specify any Windows licensing, because these are for Microsoft systems. You specify that, and then you click Save. So this is the approach of enabling disaster recovery when you have the agent deployed directly onto a system. And you hit Save, and then the indicator goes from Enable for disaster recovery or to this indicator where you see the check mark and the indication that this is disaster recovery protected. Likewise, you can enable disaster recovery for virtual machines. Here, very same approach. You specify the amount of RAM. You come down and specify the license. If it's a Microsoft, if it's a virtual machine running the Microsoft operating system, if it's a virtual machine running the Linux operating system, of course, this wouldn't be necessary to specify a Windows license. So this is how systems get protected for disaster recovery. So that leads us to the disaster recovery tab. This is your disaster recovery tab. I'll go into these connectivity options in a bit, but the first thing I want to show you, these are my systems that are being protected using, that are DR or disaster recovery protected. These are the systems that are listed here. And if any of these systems were activated, they would be up and running. If I wanted to activate any of these systems, I would simply go here, click Activate, specify which recovery point I want to use as the recovery point to use to create a virtual instance of this system. I'll go with yesterday, and then I'll just simply hit Activate. And as you can see, it begins to activate, and much of it is about beginning to power up the system. Something else that we do on the back end is that I mentioned, periodically we power up this DR protected system and take a snapshot of the login screen just to kind of give that extra level of confidence that it can be backed up. And then what I do, I like to go up here and talk about this section while that is continuing to boot up. Connectivity. Now this is an important step. A lot of times people talk about spinning up systems in the cloud. A very important point is, how do I connect to those systems once they're in the cloud? We have multiple options for doing that. Once that system comes up, I'll let you see that we're able to specify a remote desktop connection to, so you can set up a remote desktop connection to that system once it's running in the cloud, or you can set up a point-to-site VPN connection. We allow you, the instructions are here. You download a lightweight piece of software, OpenVPN, allows you to create a point-to-site VPN connection into this to the system. So then from that point, you can access it. Likewise, you can set up a site-to-site VPN connection. We make available a virtual appliance that can be run on VirtualBox, VMware, or Hyper-V, and it allows you to create or establish a site-to-site VPN connection. So in the event of disaster, your on-premise environment can be, network at least, can be connected to your cloud environment. And so any systems that are still running on-prem that need to connect, they can connect to those systems in the cloud. You're also able to specify some network forwarding rules as well, and those are listed here. Let's see. Total VMs. This guy is still booting up. Let me see. And while that guy continues to boot up, let me talk a bit about reports. As I mentioned, this is a way to give lots of reports. Daily Digest is sent out on a daily basis. You have multiple instances of a Daily Digest report, but this lets you know overnight, this is how your systems, the backups went, if they're okay, their status, just to kind of, keep you abreast of how things ran overnight. You can create backup alerts. So if anything goes wrong, you can also get alerts if things went successfully. Restore alerts. You can get notified when alerts, when things have been properly restored. Reports can be created on demand, or they can be scheduled by creating a report. You specify the name of the report, you specify the time, delivery frequency, and then you can have the report sent to people who have access to the portal as well as to external users. Likewise, the report contains information on all of the systems that you're protecting, or you can specify if there's maybe only a few key systems that you want to protect, then you can specify those and select only those few systems that you want the report to encompass. So I'm going to close that down. Now let me go back to my disaster recovery. Hopefully that server is now up and running. It is. Okay, good. Live demos. So the system, as you can see, we just simply click the activate button on this file server and it is up and running. As I mentioned, if you wanted to, just to check to say, hey, just want to check to make sure this is running, we can establish a remote desktop connection here. We can power it off if need be, and then deactivate. So activate is the instantiation of a virtual instance. You can power it off and deactivate, which relinquishes the RAM such that it could be used by other systems. And then likewise, you can initiate start a failback for this system, right? So right now we're doing all of these, you come in and do these one system at a time. Of course, going forward, we really want to add additional automation and orchestration capabilities where you can say, hey, I want to bring up my database server first, then I want to bring up my application server, and then finally my web server, and perhaps do some, pre and post activity steps involved. So this is pretty much the gist of the demo. I know I wanted to be conscious of time to make sure that we had some time for some Q&A. Here, I'll just power this server off, and it's asking to confirm. Oh, once a system does get booted up into the cloud, of course, it gets its own IP address, and it can be accessed through the external IP address. So I'll hit confirm to power it off, and then at this point, I can say deactivate, and then once I hit the deactivate, wants to confirm, says deactivating, and then it moves from the active VMs and then moves back down to the idle VMs. So that's pretty much it. You got one portal. We wanted to try to provide all the things that you need. The one portal supports both the backup as a service solution as well as the disaster recovery solution. At that point, I think I can stop the sharing. Okay. And that concludes our demo, and now I think we can open it up for any questions for the time that we have remaining.
Awesome presentation. Thank you so much. We do have some great questions that have come through, so let's go ahead and get some of those answered. Let's see here. First question, what would you say is a benefit of choosing a cloud disaster recovery solution over a disaster recovery site that is already in place?
Well, and sometimes it all depends, and sometimes this cost can become a factor. So having a disaster recovery center in place, I'm sure there's a lot of costs associated with that. The facility, you're paying for the facility whether you're using the computer or not. So sometimes costs come into play, staff, management. Sometimes the physical facility that's in place is in a location. Kind of limits your locations where if you go with a cloud approach, perhaps your recovery site could be in a different location. So it gives you options for having your disaster recovery site in other locations. So those are just a couple that come to mind. The cloud gives you that flexibility of perhaps, or the idea is to give you that flexibility to spin things up, give a quick test, and then shut things down versus, some of the activities that may have to take place if you're dealing with a physical environment.
Gotcha, thanks. Next question here, is there a limit to the amount of VMs that can be spun up in the cloud if you need to turn your infrastructure back on in case of an actual disaster recovery situation?
Right now, there are no limits. So when a customer wants a disaster recovery environment, they specify how much compute resources they need. We take that into consideration, or we take that information and leverage that when we provision them a virtual data center. And so if there's a situation where the customer needs to spin their environment up in the cloud, they can run into in the cloud as long as they need to until their on-premise environment or the disaster that has befallen their on-premise environment has been resolved, and then they can fail back from the cloud. And once they fail back from the cloud, they can shut down those virtual machines that were running in the cloud.
Gotcha, very cool. Next question here, what are Arcserve's geographic backup locations, and can we choose which location we would like to have our data backed up to?
Yes, right now we have one on the West Coast in Santa Clara. We have one on the East Coast in New Jersey. At least this is for the Cloud Direct offering. And yes, you can choose which one. Of course, if you're on the West Coast, we recommend that you choose one on the East Coast, but it's completely up to the customer to choose. And so, yep, so East Coast, West Coast, California, New Jersey, and the customer can choose.
Perfect. And Eric Hall says, so the client has the control of doing a restore. They don't have to rely on a tech at one of your locations to run it?
That is correct. They can do a restore for themselves. They can log into the portal and they can do a restore. Our support team is there available to help assist the customer if they want to. We have some customers that have varying degrees of, interest. Some, are very, they want to be hands-off, or they may not be very knowledgeable, or they may be very knowledgeable, but their time is spread across multiple solutions or activities throughout the day. And so when they need assistance, they can call our support staff and we can help them. But absolutely, a customer that has access to the portal can log in and they can initiate the restore, as well as they can activate or spin up systems in the cloud.
Great, very cool. All right, next question here is also from Eric Hall. Which is the most efficient and effective for disaster recovery, hybrid or D2C?
Hybrid. I think a lot of it is depends on a few factors. If you have a high bandwidth or high stable bandwidth, and you can move directly to the cloud, transfer the data, and that your bandwidth supports your change rates, and those changes can get to the cloud. And in the event that you need to restore, you can fail back relatively quickly because you have the bandwidth to bring back those images back to on-prem, then the cloud is an option. However, if you're limited in bandwidth, or you are, you have those customers who absolutely want to have a local copy, they just, get a warm and fuzzy feeling by having that local copy, then you can do the disk to disk and then to cloud. So I think a lot of it all depends on the situation. Of course, there's always that it depends, but unfortunately, it does depend on the customer's needs. Their RPO needs, their RTO needs, their bandwidth, their cost. So those are some of the factors that come into addressing that question.
Gotcha. Let's go ahead and answer one more. Can you talk a little bit about how you do or how Arcserve does their pricing? Is it data size or number of servers or something else?
Right now, for the Cloud Direct solution, it is for backup as a service. It's data size. In terms of your terabytes, and it's right now it's on an annual basis. So if you need 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, or you just pay for your cloud storage. And then for the disaster recovery solution, you pay for the cloud storage as well as the compute resources that you need in terms of how much RAM would you need to power up your virtual systems in the cloud. You can also pay for additional options, such as if you wanted an Active Directory server, there's a charge for that. That's a server that will be constantly running in the cloud, and it would show up as a server that's running in your virtual data center when you go to your disaster recovery tab. You can pay for that as well. Or if you needed additional external IP addresses, you can pay for those as well. So in summary, for backup as a service, it's the storage, the cloud storage. And then for disaster recovery, it's essentially the cloud storage plus compute.
Wonderful.
And any extras.
Thank you both. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just saying, and any extras that you, like external IP address, additional external IP addresses and the like. But those are the pricing models right now.
Perfect, great. Thank you both for such a great presentation. And do either of you have any final words for our audience?
Well, definitely just a thanks. It was great to be here with you, and I really appreciate your time and your interest in this, Arcserve, these Arcserve solutions, and look forward to working with you forward. Stacy, any last words?
Yeah, thanks, Keith, and thanks. I echo what you said as well. Thank you to everybody for joining today. I think this really rounds out the Arcserve unified data protection portfolio. So, if you have customers that, need to protect their data and need that DR level as well, right? Disaster recovery, definitely take a look, reach out to us. We'd love to demo you the product, work with some POCs, trials, whatever we can as well. And you can always go to arcserve.com and pull out additional information from that site as well as trials too.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. I do want to remind everyone that if your question wasn't addressed, someone will be able to follow up with you. Also, if you had to step out or if you missed any part of today's presentation, you will be receiving an email in a few days with the link to view the webinar on demand. Special thanks to Arcserve for creating this content and sponsoring the event. Also, huge thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in today. We hope to see you back soon for another SpiceWorks Partner webinar, but until then, stay safe and keep it spicy.